Hi, this is Terry Campbell with Johnson Insurance, and here with another episode of Outside the Box. And today we've got a special guest with us. We have Jon Mark Smith from Live Oak Bank. Jon Mark is a closer there, and I know firsthand a little bit about that. I was actually at Live Oak. I started that lending team for the self-storage division, let's say it was 2015, so 10 years ago. So I know a little bit about what he goes through as a closer, but I'm going to let him talk about that in a minute. And I had always said that, everybody there has a hard job, but I think closers probably have the hardest job because you're dealing with so many things, you're juggling so many things, you're doing everything you can to make sure that a loan closes on time. You're dealing with the customer, you're dealing with vendors, you're dealing with third-party folks, you're dealing with the attorney, and all this to make sure you hit that deadline. And no pressure, no big deal. It's a day apart, right, Jon Mark?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and then I've got a few things I just want to ask you about.
So my name is Jon Mark Smith. I've been a loan closer here at Live Oak for coming up on 2 years. So it's been a quick 2 years, but been working here since early last year, and then prior to that was a full-time police officer for 6 years just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, as a K-9 handler and field training officer. And then prior to that was also in the military for 4 years directly out of high school. So been living a couple of different lives at this point, as I like to say. I say I'm on my fourth one, but really enjoyed my time here at Live Oak Bank and have been just kind of diving headfirst into the self-storage realm, working with Terry and working with our self-storage lending team here at the bank. We've been going at it and just working on getting some loans closed.
That's awesome. Great background. And I'll say this for everybody else. Thank you for your service there, Jon Mark.
Thank you.
Few questions. Like I said, just a few things I want to go through. I try to keep these fairly short but informative. The first question, can you walk us through sort of what your role as closer looks like at Live Oak?
I kind of like to say I'm the jack of all trades. Have to know a little bit about everything and a lot about some things as well. We work very closely with our lending team, and it's my job to make sure that everything is in the file, all required documentation, everything that meets bank requirements and SBA requirements if it's an SBA loan. Make sure that everything is in there. It's very detailed, so that if an auditor were to come in and take a look at the file, they would have everything that they need there. Package all that stuff up nice and pretty, and then give our customers their money to ideally fund a lifelong dream.
Awesome. Now, at what point in the process do you typically step in with the client?
So after the loan has gone through the lending or application process, it goes to underwriting, and then after underwriting comes to me. So when everybody is good and tired and ready to get their money, they come to me, and I work with them to get the remaining documents that are on their closing checklist and get their money to them.
Awesome. One of the things that I used to tell folks up front when I was there, I would sort of go through the process from my perspective, and I'd say, when you get to closing, you are now part of the closing team. Would you agree with that? That they are part of the closing team because you need them very involved.
Yes, I always tell people that it's one thing for somebody to say that they want to close, and then another thing for them to show me that they want to close. Uh, it's very much a team effort, and I always remind people that if they want to sprint, we will sprint to the finish. But sometimes it can definitely feel like a marathon, but it's a team mindset for sure. And I always tell people as well that if whenever they receive their checklist, that checklist is as much mine as it is theirs. We work on that together. It's not just on their shoulders.
Awesome. So what are some of the most common hurdles that you see during the closing process?
Some of the most common hurdles that I see in the closing process are getting all the required documentation. The closing process is very fluid, and as things come in, like appraisals, environmental reports, and things of that nature, the process can really change for us. And It's really tough because one of my common running jokes is that people come to closing and they've already feel like they've given us everything but their DNA, and I that's not lost on me. But just providing even more documentation, making sure that it's all correct, and then I would say arguably one of the biggest hurdles is definitely the insurance side of things. So working to get the commercial insurance requirements taken care of and satisfied can be a task that a lot of people don't have clear understanding of or enough knowledge just because it's a little bit more complex than your average home insurance or auto insurance, and that can be a hurdle sometimes if people are not working with self-storage specific insurance companies.
What kind of timeline would you tell folks that they should realistically expect once they've reached you, once you've stepped in and got involved in the closing?
This is my favorite question that I feel like I get from customers on a pretty repeated basis. Everybody wants to know when they're going to close, and completely understood. The timeline is roughly, I love to say that it's project dependent because it truly is, but roughly for a smooth business acquisition with little to no issues, I would say 45 days. And then for a ground up construction project, depending on what stage you're at with construction, meaning have you selected a general contractor? Have you submitted your permits and plans? Do you have those permits back, or have you at least gotten comments back from the local municipality or county or whatever branch of the government that you've reached out to get that taken care of? That can all really drive a timeline from our perspective. I think a lot of people come into the ground up construction portion not having a clear understanding of closing and construction being a simultaneous thing, at least to get some money out of the door and get the process started. So that can really take anywhere from 90 to 120 days, and that is still moving pretty quickly for a construction timeline, in my opinion. There are just so many external factors, as you mentioned when we first started speaking, that play into that, working with third parties and depending a lot on other people for approvals can really drive those timelines.
Absolutely. Now, from your perspective, when should an owner begin working on securing their needed insurances? And they're going to need different types. They may need life insurance. They're going to need property and casualty. They may need flood. They may need builder's risk. From your perspective, what's the best time for them to start working on and securing this?
The best time to start working on it is the day that you sign a purchase agreement or the day that you start working with a lender. Uh, that process getting kickstarted is going to be instrumental in reducing your stress and also the stress for the lending team. Insurance for commercial requirements are not as easy as a click of a button like your home and auto insurance. And that is one misconception that people have is they think that it's just a quick process. Uh, Terry can attest to this, but they're reaching out to carriers to do the best for their clients and to make sure that they're uh, getting everything that not only is required for the or wanted by the client, but what's required by the bank. And we want to make sure that everybody has ample time to do that so that we're getting the best rates for the customers, making sure that all requirements are being met. We have coverages and endorsements that are adequate uh, for that specific project. And we really want to make sure that we're not having to push a closing date because somebody has delayed that timeline.
Yeah, it's one of the worst things that could happen. So, what problems do you run into, speaking of that, when insurance isn't handled correctly or on time?
Yeah, pushing closing date is definitely one. We end up sometimes with our backs against a wall, especially if we're looking at a commercial acquisition. If a seller is not willing to extend, really being in a hard spot with making sure that we can try to scramble and make something happen there. And we try our best to always make sure that everybody is happy. And the best way to do that is to stay ahead of everything. We don't want to uh, put anybody's insurance agent or team up against the wall as well with a tight closing timeline. And we realize that sometimes that's not always realistic. We have come to perfect quick close acquisitions, it feels. Um, but yeah, just that would say that's the biggest hurdle is a timeline being crunched because of us uh, being put in a situation, whether it's a delay from a customer or maybe even a switch of insurance companies. That happens as well. So just staying on top of it from the beginning can make a huge difference.
I think you made a good point there that sometimes folks think, especially if they've not been through it before, they think it's just like getting the car insurance or their homeowners, and it's totally different animal, and it takes a lot more time and work involved on everybody's part.
Yeah.
And it's not good when folks are put into that position at all. So how do you and your team coordinate with insurance partners like us at Johnson?
So I coordinate directly with the insurance agent as long as the customer is comfortable with that. I like to keep the customer copied on that communication because we want them to understand the process that we're going through and also be able to make decisions that are informed. But it's much easier for me to coordinate directly with the insurance agent and team because it allows me to clearly communicate our requirements and nothing gets lost in translation. We can send those over directly to the insurance agent. The borrower can see what those are, and they will on their initial closing checklist as well. But it resolves a lot of issues where we can have some back and forth about endorsements and coverages maybe needing to be adjusted. And we can go ahead and verify through the quote that those are going to meet the requirements that the bank has.
And what documentation or proof of coverage is critical for you guys as the lender before you can close?
So we want to see the certificate of insurance or the evidence of insurance. You'll hear the common acronym COI or EOI, and those will provide us with all the required coverages and endorsements for the bank. We look to make sure that all of the coverage amounts are correct, the coverages themselves are correct, and then also that the endorsements for each specific coverage are listed. So uh, sometimes there's a little bit of back and forth there. The forms have to be perfect. If not, I get a nice little email after the loan's closed to make sure that we get that taken care of. So we really try to make sure that that's correct on the front end and we're not missing anything. It's beneficial for the borrower and it just makes the process a lot smoother from start to finish.
Have you seen or had any examples where a strong collaboration between the lender and the insurer has kept a deal on track or maybe even saved a deal?
I alluded to this a few minutes ago, but Terry and his team have saved me quite a few times for whatever the reason might have been. We've had to go with some very last minute coverages or changes, and we've always just seemed to get the job done. I say we really Terry and his team have been able to pull that off. I'm able to communicate on behalf of the borrower and work with them directly to make sure that everything gets taken care of. But Terry and Natalie and Blake and uh, everybody else at Johnson Insurance have really been instrumental in keeping those deals on track and pushing to get carriers to provide information and uh, get all the stuff that we need prior to closing. So sometimes we've done it the day before closing, but we've done it, and that's been huge for us and our customer base here whenever they've been working with you guys.
Awesome. Well, John Mark, I just want to thank you again for spending a little time with us. We really appreciate the relationship, and you guys are great to work with. And we always encourage folks to give you guys a shot because I know how it is. I know how you guys work, and I know the effort that's put forth to make things happen. So, again, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. And everyone, thanks for watching and look forward to seeing you on the next installment of Outside the Box.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everybody.